Being homeschooled, I was able to have a lot of freedom in exploring what I was interested in. And it
Mhm.
gave me, with me being the only student in the house, I could finish school when I finished school and then spend, whatever creative time I wanted making videos, learning more about editing or, how to compose a shot on my little mini DV camcorder or something like that.
Welcome to Homeschool Talks, a podcast by HSLDA. This is a show about all things homeschooling, from practical tips to inspiring stories and everything in between. This episode of Homeschool Talks features a conversation originally hosted live on our Facebook page. So if you like what you hear, be sure to follow us there for more content like this. We're so glad you've joined us today, and we hope you enjoy the program.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Daniel Heffington, and I serve as Communications Manager for HSLDA's Generation Joshua. Joining me today is Jake Bartlett. He's a homeschool grad and a motion designer and the Jake from the Jake in Motion YouTube channel. Thanks for taking the time today. Thanks for coming on the show and for being willing to talk with us for a while.
Of course, happy to be here.
So just to kind of give our audience and viewers starting point, because some may be fans, some may not have heard of you before, will you share a little bit about yourself and your family and your background to kind of get us started in our conversation today?
Sure. Yeah. So, I am a motion designer. I'm sure we're going to dig into what that means a little bit later, but I currently live in Denver, Colorado. I grew up in Traverse City, Michigan, and that's where, when I was in school as a homeschooler, that's where I was living. I went to John Brown University in Arkansas, where I met my wife. We got married right after we graduated, and then actually lived in Los Angeles for about 7 years. That my career kind of took me there. But we ended up back here in Colorado, where my wife is from, to be closer to family.
That's amazing. So you're in the Denver area now, you said?
Yep.
Cool. That's a beautiful place. Well, you kind of touched on this, but like for somebody watching who just popped on, they're like, oh, HSLDA is live on Facebook today. What is motion design? I'm assuming we're not talking Pilates, we're not talking dance, we're not talking something that's like moving, but like, what is it?
Yeah, so motion design is a branch of animation. So think of graphic design, people who are designing anything that you see, but putting that into motion and animating it. So if you think of a commercial that has animated text or graphics flying around, an iPhone commercial, something like that, that's the kind of stuff I do. And there's lots of tiny little facets of motion design that you can specialize in or generalize in a bunch of them. But yeah, it's basically animation.
So that's incredible. And that blows my mind. I'm so happy to be the person interviewing you today because I work with designers in my role at GenJ all the time. I do a small amount of design myself, but I wouldn't ever brag about it or put it out there to be next to the professionals. But the animation part and making those things like move, and it's hard enough. Like it's hard enough to master Photoshop or a really great design, but then to make it like actually come to life, that's pretty mind blowing. Do you find that like, does everybody just get their mind blown, or is there like a part of the world that's like, oh yeah, of course it would take this? Like how big of a dive does it feel stepping into the world of motion design?
Well, yeah, I think for somebody who's brand new to it, it can seem pretty overwhelming just because of how large of a world it is. Because when I say animation, I try not to just leave it at that, because immediately most people think of Disney and Pixar.
Right.
And I'm not doing that level of animation. Those movies and shorts even are made by giant teams of artists that have a variety of different specialties. So I try to explain a little bit more of what motion design is kind of referring to. But yeah, I mean, since there's so many different ways that you can interpret that word animation, it can be a pretty big leap in someone's mind.
So how long have you had an interest in motion design? How long has this been a passion of yours?
Yeah, really, I want to say back to when I was probably 13, 14 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
my oldest, my oldest brother he went to John Brown University his last 2 years of college. And when he came back one summer, he showed me this program, Adobe After Effects and Photoshop and Premiere to edit videos. And he taught me how to put lightsabers on top of video that we shot. And so that was kind of like the hook, line, and sinker. I'm in. I want to know how to do this. this is what I want to, take where I want to take my
It
career.
sounds like you
So
have a good older brother.
yeah, absolutely. I attribute a lot of my career
I mean,
success to him.
I feel like that's a very legitimate case for someone who jokes and says I peaked in high school. Clearly you didn't, but if I had learned how to animate lightsabers in high school, I might have just kind of been like, yeah, I've made my mark on the world. That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And so, yeah, it really all stemmed back to me playing with both my brothers and making silly videos with my friends, and then learning how to do visual effects at a very early age.
That's amazing. Do any of those videos exist on the internet to be found?
You could probably find a couple of them. Yes. Yeah. If you search for my
Okay.
name enough, you'll find a second channel.
All
You
right.
can,
Well,
you can find those videos.
I'll jot that down. All right. Well, so you started 13, 14. You thought this was cool. You started doing the After Effects, doing the lightsaber stuff. There's clearly a long journey between that, which was in and of itself cool, but where you are today, you have a whole brand, you do all this type of work, doing a lot more than lightsabers now.
Mhm.
What were your goals back then? Once you kind of got your lightsaber merit badge and you're like, okay, I can do lightsabers. What came next? Like
Yeah.
what, high school, beyond high school, you said you went to college. So was that always the plan, or how did that work?
Yeah, I always planned to go to college. Like I said, I'm the youngest of two older brothers. So they, both went off to college. I got to see what that was like earlier. But that was my plan. Just making those silly videos, it was just for fun. I wanted to learn as much as I could about cameras and editing, photo manipulation, visual effects, but it was all basically just playing. Through high school, I was dual enrolled at the local community college, so I got to take some college level Photoshop classes,
That's awesome.
and learn some basic design stuff there. It helped me when I went into college. I was able to kind of clep out of those in my first semester. But going into college, I wanted to be either a video editor or a motion designer. And
Okay.
so I just got a general digital media degree. That's what I was studying for. And my minor was graphic design, which is obviously half of motion design. It's being a designer. So
Right.
I had to learn, a lot of fundamental design principles that I could then translate into motion. And my school at the time didn't offer anything related to motion design. So I really
Okay.
was self-taught in the world of using After Effects and making things move. And I really got more of an art foundation at school and learned a lot more about cinematography there.
That somehow, as somebody this is not my life, that somehow seems really valuable, if maybe a slightly non-traditional route. I don't know. Is that not a non-traditional route, or is that kind of what everyone does? Is the first tip, make sure you get an art foundation before you start trying to make art move?
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely what I would suggest people do,
Uh-huh.
especially because I didn't have a foundation in animation. Like I said, my
Yep.
college didn't offer that. So it wasn't until long into my career and deciding to start freelancing that I really invested in my own education in animation principles.
Okay.
Up to
Wow.
that part, I mean, that point in my life, I had just learned everything that I could online.
Yep.
And I became good at the program I was using. I would say I was good at After Effects, but I wouldn't
Yep.
have said that I was a motion designer because I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew how to make things move around.
That's an interesting distinction. That makes sense. Okay. So you said, kind of jumping, somewhere in between this before you went off to school and maybe post or during the lightsaber phase.
Yeah.
You said you were homeschooled, right?
Yeah. That's right.
So tell us about that journey in your life. Were you homeschooled for a long time, a short time? Did homeschooling did you feel like gave you a unique advantage in some of these passions, or, what's your perspective there?
Yeah. So I was homeschooled my whole life. So I really have nothing to compare it to.
Uh-huh.
The last 2 years of high school, I did go to a half-day co-op where I went to the visual imaging technology at the Career Tech Center is what it was called,
Oh, wow.
where I learned both print and design. So
That's cool.
in my first year. And the second year, they let me move into video. And so even though I was homeschooled, the little opportunities that I had to work with other people in a group environment, I was able to still kind of just goof around and make fun videos that I was
Yeah.
interested in. But being homeschooled, pre that group interaction, I feel like I at least was able to have a lot of freedom in exploring what I was interested in. And it
Mhm.
gave me, with me being the only student in the house, I could finish school when I finished school and
Yep.
then spend, whatever creative time I wanted making
Yep.
videos, learning more about editing, or how to compose a shot on my little mini DV camcorder
Sure.
or something like
Oh,
that.
I had one of those
Yeah,
on those, like, yeah, like with like the little tapes that were digital.
exactly.
This is very embarrassing, but it took me a very long time and many short little movies to realize that the reason my shots didn't look cool was because I was using a camcorder that like did all the autofocus,
Mm,
and I didn't have an actual lens. Like that took me way too long to realize that. But go for mini DV cameras.
yeah.
So all right, so you clearly had that flexibility to say school's done, I know what my assignment's in, you're possibly motivated to knock it out of the way so you can get on to what you're maybe a little more passionate about than math or science or spelling, whatever
Yeah,
your
exactly.
thing was. um what did your parents think of this? Was this like were they like, okay, it's the carrot to get you to do school, or did they think, wow, there could really be something here, or what was the vibe there?
They were always extremely supportive of whatever I wanted to do creatively. My dad is an architect, and so I got to see how he used, his creativity in
Yeah.
that line of work. And my mom is a piano teacher. I learned from her, and just on a daily basis, got to see her teaching piano. So we were a very creative family, and I think that. Yeah, even honestly, before I started doing stuff on the computer, we had a camcorder, and I like with full size VHS tapes, and I found that there was this stop motion mode where it would take a 16th of a second
Oh, no
recording
way.
every time you press the button. And so I had this castle set with all these, knights and stuff
Yeah,
storming the castle. And
I'm almost positive I know what set you're talking about. It was like the one with like the cannonball
yep,
rock things, and like
yes,
the guy who had like the mace with like the chain or whatever, and like the silver knight and the
exactly.
black knight. And I think
Yep,
I'm just guessing you maybe were born in like the 90s or something.
late 80s,
Late
88.
late
Yeah,
80s. Okay, so
yeah,
like I think all of us who came, because I was born in 1990, I think we all grew up with that castle set.
yeah,
So that's incredible. So you
yeah.
stop
So
motion that thing?
even with that, yeah, like that's probably one of the first times that I remember like grabbing the camera by myself in my room and doing something. And I
Yeah.
spent like hours doing this stop
Oh
motion
man.
thing on VHS. And then I would do it with Lego sets. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, my parents were extremely supportive of me creatively. We were, I would, when digital cameras became a thing, my
Hmm.
dad's office, he got one. So he brought it home and I got to use it. And then eventually
Oh,
we
that's so
got one
great.
on eBay. And then I got a
Yeah.
little older and I was like, Dad, there's a better one. Can we get it? And like, so it was just like, I think my parents were just as interested in it as I was, and they
That's
saw that I was
incredible.
getting excited. So they've always been super supportive.
That's really, really cool. And that, yeah, I was also homeschooled my whole life. My parents were both had creative background as musicians, and I grew up to, in addition to my work with HSLDA and Generation Joshua, I do music and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's always special, I think, when your parent gets it. Like I've talked with a lot of people who are like, they're creative and their parents weren't particularly creative, but they were still supportive. So that's great
Mhm.
too. But that if you're kind of speaking the same language, that's pretty special. That's amazing. Probably some people watching today. We have a few people, somebody watching. They're in Wisconsin. They've been homeschooling for a long time. There's one of the people in the comments here just said they were inspired by your story to get into stop motion with their kids again. Do you have any advice for parents of high schoolers, or for even high school students themselves, who are interested in this topic, or even kind of anything semi-related, like starting a business or doing creative work or something like that, when they're still in that homeschool phase?
Yeah. I mean, it is so much more accessible today than it was when I was learning. YouTube wasn't a thing when I was first learning the programs I am. So if you have a child who's interested in getting into design and motion, you can get a 7-day, I think 7-day free trial of the entire Adobe suite of applications. You can get
Yeah.
free alternatives to Photoshop or Illustrator. So those resources are there. And if you really want to, explore that further with your kids, I would strongly encourage you looking at a platform like Skillshare, which is a place
Hmm.
that I host most of my classes, where you can pay a yearly subscription and get access to the entire library of tens of thousands of courses, but in a huge range of topics. Motion design is just one little topic where when I started, there weren't many other teachers teaching it, but now it's
Yeah.
it's a pretty big category on the platform. But it's so valuable to be able to see or get education from these people who have experience and expertise in that particular area, and be able to just jump from one thing to another creatively.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's actually a perfect transition, because one thing I wanted to ask you about was what you do with all of these,
Yeah.
with all of these courses and videos. I spent some time checking out your YouTube and Instagram reels, and they were amazing. I have a
Thank
couple of
you.
specific questions after this,
Okay.
but yeah, like tell us, how you teach, and in a sense also what your world looks like, as far as like how much of your time is like doing what, because it sounds like you kind
Yeah.
of do a million things.
Yeah, I kind of do feel that way sometimes. I guess I should start by saying when I graduated college, I found a job as a motion designer
Okay.
in LA just through a friend who knew somebody who needed somebody. And
Sweet.
that's how I got pulled into the world of motion design, because I said I wanted to be either a video editor or a motion designer.
Yep.
And they needed somebody who knew the program that I After Effects that I use. And so I got into a production company in LA. I worked there for almost 5 years.
Oh,
The
cool.
last year of working there, in 2014, I posted my first class on this platform called Skillshare.
Okay.
My wife encouraged me to do this because she knew that I enjoyed teaching. Even back when we were dating in college, she kind of played that up and, played dumb and let me teach her things that she didn't actually need to know.
Like the
But she
Disney
really,
movie. It's
yeah,
like, teach me
exactly.
how to shoot.
Yep. But she really encouraged me. She's like, this is an opportunity. Like, you should probably try your hand at teaching to see if you like it. And so I did that, and the class did really extremely well. At the time, I didn't think I really had the credentials. I didn't go to school to be a teacher or anything. So I didn't think that anybody would really receive it well, but sure enough, it did really well. And after a year, I had already been considering going freelance, and instead of working for somebody else. And the day that I gave my 2 weeks notice, Skillshare emailed me and said, "Hey, would you make a second class? We're starting this top teachers group where we're going to support you guys.
Oh man.
Would you do it?" And I was like, "Well, that's good timing." I mean, it was
Yeah.
literally 20 minutes after I told my boss I was leaving my job.
That's insane.
So when I went freelance, most of my income was coming from freelance work and
Yep.
figuring that out. But slowly over time, as I posted more and more classes, it became more of like, teaching became more of my income source, and I was able to take less of that freelance work.
Yeah.
Another website called School of Motion, which is an education platform specifically for motion design, asked me to make a course for them. I did that. That followed that up with a second course. And so, yes, eventually teaching became my full-time gig, and I stopped taking freelance work.
Wow.
Eventually, I made a YouTube channel. That was about 3 years ago, probably
Okay.
now.
Okay.
But it was really just a catch-all for the ideas that didn't work as Skillshare classes, because it does have a specific format. You have to have a class project, and every now and then I would have an idea for something that's fun to know or something I think is valuable to teach.
Yep.
But it didn't really fit the format of a class. So I just started a channel, and I put some there. And over a couple of years, with only 10 videos, I got about 40,000 subscribers, which
Wow.
it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that I realized I should probably be taking advantage of that,
Yeah.
and really decided I'm going to start pushing my YouTube
So
channel a little bit
you
harder.
put up 10 videos over how long? Like
It was about 3 months.
10 videos over 3 months, and you got
Yeah.
40,000 subscribers.
Over about 2 years, yeah.
You must have had like incredible videos. That like
I guess so.
that growth rate for a YouTube video per subscriber thing. I mean, that's through the roof.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It was pretty amazing, and I attribute some of the success to having a following on Skillshare already.
Yeah,
So I
okay,
told them,
sure.
"Hey, I'm starting a YouTube channel."
Okay, right.
But you're right. That is a lot of growth for so few videos. And I did let it sit there dormant for a while. I really just focused on making Skillshare classes.
Well, I was doing some digging before we had this interview, and I was on your Instagram, and if I'm reading correctly, it looks like you're not at 40,000 YouTube subscribers anymore. I saw something about like 100,000. Is that true?
That's true. I just crossed the 100,000 mark in September.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got the plaque behind me
Oh,
there.
I see it back there. That's whoa.
Yeah, that was
Guys,
very
I'm talking
surreal.
to a like official YouTuber, like
Exactly. That's what I tell
seriously,
people now. It's official.
In polls amongst teenage high school students, one of the top, the top job used to be like rock star or movie star, something just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Right now, top job that teens want is a YouTuber. So,
Yeah.
you're living the dream for some people, and congratulations. That is
Thank you.
seriously a massive milestone. How did it feel when
Oh,
you crossed that line?
it was incredible. I didn't see it coming as quickly as it did. I was, I had a really good video followed up with a collaboration with a bigger YouTuber, and
Okay.
those two things pushed me over the 100,000 mark about 2 months sooner than I expected to.
Wow.
So it was a really big surprise. We celebrated as a family, went out to eat.
That's amazing.
When that plaque came, my kids love it.
Yes.
It's pretty awesome.
That's so cool, man. Um, do you have any advice for teens? So, you kind of talked about the classes, the educational opportunities that somebody who wants to kickstart their creative careers in high school might take advantage of. How about like kids who are wanting to develop whatever their skill is, whatever their interest is, wanting to develop an online presence, whether it might be a course or something like a YouTube channel. Like, I don't know. It sounds like you have a high above average growth rate for the content that's out there, but like any tips for that? Like the shorthand version is how do you for the teen watching who's like, how do I blow up my YouTube channel and offer people value? How do I do
Right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably teach a course on how to teach a course.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
thinking. Yeah.
that's one. If you want to get into the education space, that's one thing. If you want to be a YouTuber who is live streaming, playing games, like
Hmm.
that's totally a viable thing you can do. I think my biggest advice is just to research other YouTubers who are becoming successful in that area
Yeah.
and see what they're doing, dissect it, see how you can follow in their footsteps. It doesn't have to look like my setup here. This has been a work in progress that I've been working on for a long time, getting the lights and the camera and the microphone, everything that I want the
It
way
looks
it is.
awesome, by
But
the way.
thank you very much. But you don't have to start that way. I mean, you have probably a 4K camera in your pocket. When I was working, when I was learning, I was working off VHS tapes, and
Hmm.
we had to, like, it wasn't an easy process to get that
Yeah.
video onto the
Yeah.
computer. Like, you can do that with your phone now or your iPad. So don't let technical things limit you. YouTube is like I'm going to sound so old for just continuing to say I didn't have YouTube when I was growing up,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is such a wealth of knowledge. It's constantly being
Yeah.
updated with new techniques. So you just have such a massive resource in front of you. Just research it, find out what other people have done and what they advise on becoming successful in whatever niche you want to specialize in.
That's awesome. How do you deal with, in this life when you're actually doing the art you do, and then you're teaching people how to do the art you do, and all these things that somehow involve both, and you're developing a YouTube channel and Instagram following? How do you deal with either, avoiding the classic traps of like burnout, or how do you deal with a creative block? Because I'm assuming even someone as creative as yourself has run into that before.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, because we've already talked about all these different areas that I'm pulled in.
Yeah.
Currently, I've got my YouTube channel. I have Skillshare classes, School of Motion, and then this. We haven't talked about it yet, but this company that I am currently on full time with is called Battle Axe. So managing all of that is a lot, and I think I've just been very blessed and fortunate to be able to be working for myself and be able to financially support my family in a way that I can say, you know what, I'm going to sit down at 9 and I'm going to work
Yep.
until around 4 o'clock when my son gets home from pickup, or
Yep.
maybe I'll go get him and take a day or end my day a little earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm able to be very fluid with how much I'm working. When I have a task, I think my personality, I'm very focused at that 9 o'clock mark. I sit
Yep.
down at my desk and I work for a solid 4 hours,
Yep.
and I get stuff done. But I can't say enough how much your mental health is so important, and
Yeah.
especially as being a family person and the head of my household. Like I want to be there for my family whenever I can. So
Yeah.
if my wife and my daughter want to run to Costco and have lunch there, I'm probably going to go with them. So
That's awesome.
I think just get your priorities straight. I'm not living the YouTuber life of like, I have to get this video up by 9
Yeah.
a.m. on
Yeah.
Wednesday, or else my subscribers, like, I really don't care about that. Like I am way more focused on the quality of my content
Mhm.
than the consistency.
Okay. Yep.
And I think, that the proof is in the pudding with, I had 10 videos and I got 40,000 subscribers over 2 years.
Clearly.
My space of the education, or the education space is has the benefit of generally being more evergreen content than if
Yeah,
you're putting something out that somebody's going to watch and then
that's a
never
good
come
point.
back to.
Yeah, people will kind of
Um,
reuse that, and
yeah,
new people come to it.
exactly. And I am, my audience is mainly beginner to intermediate. So I have, a new generation every year coming in to learn these things and discovering my content. So that helps.
Well, that's fantastic, and I'm feeling like some of the people watching right now, or some of the parents and who have students who are watching right now, might want to know what are like. It sounds like you have a lot of courses, but what would you say are like the top two or three that like teens should jump into and say, hey, I want to learn from you. I want to go
Yeah,
down this path. Feel free to
sure.
directly plug them or however that works.
Yeah. Well, the majority of my content is on Skillshare. And
Okay.
for the money, it is, I think, the best value simply because of how many different things that you can learn.
Yeah.
If you have, I think it's around $136 for a year.
Okay.
And like I said, there are literally tens of thousands of classes.
So it just gives you access to all
To all,
classes. Oh,
yep.
wow. That's cool.
Yep. And like I said, every class on Skillshare is project based. So you will be
Yep.
given something that you can create through watching that class. That's how all of my classes are set up. If your students are serious about motion design,
Yep.
School of Motion, hands down, is my number one recommendation for where to learn that education. Not just because I teach there, but because that's where I learned. When
Okay.
I left my job to freelance, and I already mentioned, like I decided I should probably invest in myself in learning animation foundations and principles that I wasn't taught in school. That's where I learned it. So can't recommend School of Motion enough. Obviously, my YouTube channel and YouTube in general, it's free. So that
Mhm.
is a great place to start. There are so many people teaching motion design at such a high quality level. I think the downside to YouTube in general is that it can be a little sporadic. Even on
Sure.
my channel, it's like I'm teaching you this specific thing. If you want a rigid, like, plan that teaches you
Yeah.
from start to the end, the Beginner's Guide to After Effects is a course that I made on Skillshare. It's 6 hours long. That is by far my most popular class on the
Cool.
platform, and I've had phenomenal reviews. So I think that is a good contrast to what you get for paying money versus just searching
Yeah.
around on YouTube for
Because
answers.
YouTube's great, but you don't know what you don't know. So like you
Exactly.
watch one video and then you're like, oh, I guess I know, and then you run into these massive questions and because you don't have the foundation. So
Yep.
that's awesome. We have a couple questions coming in from the audience. If you don't
Yeah.
mind taking a second to answer those, uh, someone's asking, can I ask what Jake's philosophy approach is to teaching in regard to how to keep things simple, or how simple to keep things while still covering the subject?
So my approach, um, I think, is different than most, but it has worked out for me. I have a tendency to not be able to stop myself from talking.
Okay.
So when I got on YouTube, I did not care about the length of my videos. Some of them were 45 minutes, even an hour long.
Hmm.
And that's just because when I'm teaching you something, I want you to know everything that I think you should know. I don't want to leave anything out. I don't want you to have questions or run into issues later on. So I don't let the length dictate or like anything about my
Yeah,
content
you're not
unless
trying
I'm
to like say fit it in 3 minutes really fast
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, unless I'm trying to make something specifically to be like under the 10-minute mark, like I just hit record, and however long it takes me to explain it, that's how long it takes. If the video is really long, sometimes maybe I'll take snippets from that and turn it into YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, something like that, to be a little bit more bite-sized.
Yep.
But in terms of, keeping it simple versus covering the subject, I'm way more about cover the subject. Don't leave any, doors unopened. Make sure you explain as fully as you can whatever you're teaching.
That sounds like the heart of a teacher, so it's no surprise that you have gone down this path, because that sounds valuable. Um, let's see. Christine is wondering, what content did you decide to share on Skillshare, and did you focus on one type of content? Or do you source various types of content? I'm assuming that's like, how do you narrow what all the things you could talk about to what
Right.
makes a good class?
Yeah. So I have over 30 classes on Skillshare. I've been teaching there for, I want to say, 8 years now. So I've had a lot of time to think about this. But basically, with almost any video that I make, whether it's on YouTube or Skillshare or wherever, it's almost always stemming from something that I'm currently excited about.
Okay.
Every now and then I'll have a specific, like, I want to make a beginner's intro class, but generally it's, oh, I just learned this new technique, or I thought of this new thing that I could do. I'm excited about it. I'm going to make some examples, and okay, it's going to be a YouTube video or it's going to be a Skillshare class.
Yeah.
And I think my personality comes through when I'm excited about something. People can see that and
Yep.
they engage with me more. And I think that is part of what I can attribute to some of my success as a teacher.
That's incredible. And Christine was kind of reemphasizing also, you had talked about focusing on quality over volume, and for at least for your type of content, you found that to work really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think quality over volume is 100% the way to go. But I should caveat that with, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see over 100 videos that all have green thumbnails. That was a series I did on YouTube that I posted a video every day for 8 months.
Yeah. Wow.
And the
That's a
thing is,
lot.
I batched those videos. I could do 5 to 7 of those a day,
Yep.
because it was explaining a very specific part of this program that just had a lot of effects. They're all like filters on Instagram. It's the effects that you can apply in After Effects. So I did
Yep.
a video a day for 8 months. That got me from 40,000 subscribers to 85,000. So there's something to be said for
Yeah.
that. But now that that I don't have a daily series that I'm creating, I would absolutely say that the quality of the content you're putting out is much more important than the timeliness of it.
That's great. Tell us about the other part of your work. I think you said it was called Battle Axe.
Yes.
What is Battle Axe? How
So
does that
Battle
work?
Axe is a one-man tool developer for the program that I teach, After Effects. So
Okay.
he used to work for Google, and for the longest time just stayed there because they have a really great health insurance, and his wife actually has MS. And
Oh
so
wow.
he needed access to great health insurance, but he
Yep.
was getting very burnt out by working at Google. He wanted to be developing tools full-time
Yep.
and coding. And so he was writing up a job description because he found out here in the States, the way to still have access to good health insurance without working for a company is to employ someone.
Mm.
And so he was writing up a job description for everything about his job that he didn't like. And halfway through, he said he stopped and realized he was just describing me. And so he messaged me and said, "Jake, could we talk? I have
Oh, that's amazing.
this proposal for you." And the great thing about this is that I was already using his tools, and they are some of the best tools that have ever
Oh
been
wow.
created for this program. And so I was already advocating for him and telling people to buy his stuff. And he basically said, "Can you keep doing that on your own channel? And I'll pay you a salary and give you benefits."
That's incredible.
So, I mean, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, yeah.
I make content for anytime there's an update to one of his tools or a new tool that comes out. I'm the now kind of the face
Yeah.
of Battle Axe. I'm the lead educator is my title.
That's
But
incredible.
it's just such a great mutually beneficial partnership and a very non-traditional full-time job, because it's not
Yeah.
like I'm clocking in and clocking out or
Yeah,
anything like
yeah, yeah.
that. It's just basically half of my YouTube videos are sponsored by Battle Axe, is what
That's so cool.
we've
Yeah.
played it that way.
That's amazing. So, how does that go with I might sound really ignorant here, but I work with programs in like the audio music space, like Logic by Apple or
Yeah,
something like that. Is Battle Axe and these tools for After Effects, is that like, would that be the same equivalent of a third party plugin? Where it's like
exactly.
I would use an audio tool and use like a compressor from Waves or something like that, and you might use this thing from Battle Axe for After Effects.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
that is exactly what these tools from Battle Axe do. One of the easiest examples to understand is that Adobe Illustrator is a design program.
Yep.
After Effects is a motion design program, and you can use those the artwork you create in Illustrator in After Effects. But it's kind of a process getting that artwork into After Effects in a format that you can
Yep.
start animating. One of the tools from Battle Axe is literally, you have Illustrator open here, you have After Effects open here, you select your artwork and click a button, and it's in the other program. So
Wow.
it's a very big
Yeah,
workflow
yeah.
enhancing set of tools.
That sounds really valuable for anybody who's kind of currently gone down this road a bit.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What has been your favorite part in your journey as an educator? And a lot of our audience that's watching right now, they're educators in their own right. They're educating their students, or sometimes even a larger group of students at a co-op or something. What do you have to say generally about teaching, educating, in that process? And even, is there anything that you learned as a homeschooler that you carry into how you teach today?
Yeah. So I think the biggest surprise to me was how well I was received. I was like, when I first taught my first Skillshare class, like I said, I didn't think I had any credentials. Why would anybody listen to me?
Okay.
And I quickly discovered nobody cares about my background. They
Yeah.
just care about the content they're getting and the education they're getting. And so, especially on YouTube, I was very afraid of comments because it's the internet. And,
YouTube comment sections are notorious. It
yeah.
can be
So,
brutal.
so going into it, I didn't have high expectations, but I'm blown away by the supportive comments that I get on my channel and the gratitude from these people who are learning from me. Because when you think about it, I'm putting out content for free. People on
Yeah.
YouTube are consuming content for free.
Yeah.
I just didn't expect the gratitude that came with
Yeah.
it. So that's extremely rewarding.
You're basically handing out keys to locks that people are running into. They're running against this locked door, and you're the person that's like, hey, you don't know who I am, but here's a key, it'll unlock the door, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like
Yeah,
that seems
exactly.
to be the kind of dynamic there, which is pretty beautiful. That's amazing. So I think that kind of, I feel like if you want to stretch that metaphor a little bit, you can take
Mhm.
that as a larger overarching principle of education to say, it's not so much about like impressing someone with here's my resume, here's why you should listen to me, but more like give them keys that actually unlock doors. And when they see that that's working, they're going to come back to you. They're going to be like, hey, you're my guy.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
that's amazing. A couple final questions if you have
Yeah,
just a little bit extra time.
of course.
One thing, this is a random one. Who or what is Bonk Bonk?
Bonk Bonk is a character that I created that's kind of a mixture of a duck and a bike horn,
Okay.
clown horn.
Yeah.
And if you go to my Instagram, you'll see I made both a 2D and a 3D version of that. But that character again came about from one of my tutorials. I needed some animation to demonstrate a process I was trying to teach, and he just came to mind, and I created him.
Well, I like Bonk Bonk. I found Bonk Bonk today on your Instagram, and I hope there's more Bonk Bonk in the future.
All right.
Any other exciting plans for Jake in Motion, and anything / where can we sign up for your courses? Get for the audience right now, tell them what's the future look
Yeah.
like and how they can connect with you.
Yeah. So if you want to follow me on Skillshare, you can go to skillshare.com/Jake Bartlett. Everywhere else online, I'm at Jake in Motion. So on YouTube, on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere you want to contact me, you can do it there at Jake in Motion. My website is jakeinmotion.com if you'd like to email me. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Kind of a final question from Jean in the chat is, where do you see homeschooling going the next 10 years with the ability to learn so many great things at home? Literally, you might find people incorporating your courses into their homeschool curriculum.
Right.
So, there anything from the virtual world, or, what would your kind of projection be in that zone?
Yeah, it's a very crazy time. Things are changing so quickly that, when my son, he's currently in first grade, when he gets to college age, especially if he wants to go into a creative field, I don't know that college is going to be the best option for him.
Mhm.
Honestly, just because of the cost. I mean, unless things change, but the amount of education that you can get right now on any facet of motion design or animation, you could pay less than a semester's worth of college and have access to all of it, plus get an amazing computer to work on it and all the licenses you need to the software. So I think that is enabling for homeschoolers specifically because they have the opportunity, like I did, to learn about that sooner than college.
Yeah.
In high school, if you're getting interested about, shooting a camera or photography or whatever it is, being on camera, there's so many great resources that you can get that education before going to an expensive college or wherever it is. So especially with the pandemic, my wife and I were very strongly considering homeschooling our kids,
Yeah.
and it ended up just not going that way.
Yeah.
A lot of thoughtful consideration and praying around that, but it could change year to year. Who knows
Yeah.
what's going to happen in 2023?
Yeah, I mean it's a fast changing world, and you make a great point as far as just the way that education is. There's, if you're hungry for it, you can get a lot of it right now.
Right.
So that's amazing. Well, that's been incredible. Jake, do you have anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Any final word, encouragement, plans for the future that they should stay tuned for? I'll hand it to you before we close it out.
I guess the last thing I want to say is if any parents are listening and their kids are talking about being a YouTuber, don't discredit them. It actually is a viable path, and just keep supporting them in whatever way you can.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, Jake, thanks again. Thanks so much for being here, for sharing your story with us, and for the stuff that you've done to educate probably already a lot of homeschoolers. And I think we'll have a lot more checking you out after this. And a final note to parents, if you're looking ahead and wondering how to help your kids find their passions and prepare them for their life journey, HSLDA, we also have a lot of resources, including a whole series of articles called Helping My Teen Explore Career Options. And we'll put the link for that in the comments as well. And if you as always, if you're here on the HSLDA channel and you're not yet a member, we encourage you to join. There's a lot of awesome benefits to HSLDA membership, and go check out Jake and all of his resources on Skillshare and elsewhere. Thanks again, Jake, for making time for this. It's been awesome getting to chat with you. I hope you have a great day. And thanks to everybody for watching.
Today's program is made possible by HSLDA's online store. Do you need a student ID card for your middle schooler? Or maybe a customized transcript for your high schooler? Our online store offers carefully selected products for every stage of your homeschool journey, from one-stop graduation shopping to books, audio classes, DVDs, and more. And if you're an HSLDA member, our exclusive teacher and student photo IDs can help you get discounts at retail stores, museums, and more. To start shopping today, visit store.hslda.org. That's store.hslda.org. Thanks for listening to this episode of Homeschool Talks. If you've enjoyed this conversation, will you do us a favor by sharing it with a friend or leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts? As a reminder, you can find show notes for this episode along with our other Homeschool Talks conversations at hslda.org/podcast. And if you want to be the first to know about new episodes, as well as upcoming guests and topics, you can sign up for our email list using the link in the show notes. That's all for now. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we'll see you next time.